Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. So, my high school had different programs, biomed, math, IT, and most importantly for the purposes of this anecdote, law. I was in the law program, and so throughout high school I cultivated a healthy knowledge of law and legal procedure. Not enough to do pre-law stuff, but enough that I could probably defend myself in court. Probably. Let's hope I never have to. The point is, in addition to that, I got really into legal thrillers. But by far, the best legal thriller I've ever read was only released in the past year. A Criminal Defense by William L. Myers Jr. is, in my opinion, the greatest legal thriller ever, because it not only gives a thrilling legal story, but there are twists and turns in this book that not even a psychic could see coming. If I sound like I'm a little too excited about this, it's because I am. It's such a good book. Part of me doesn't even want to review it, and I just want to sit here and tell you to go read it, and then you'll see why I love it, but of course I have a job to do. You're here for my opinion on the book, and I'm gonna give it to you, but I do want to start off with a preface. Go read this book. It's $3.99 on Kindle and $7 on paperback, and this is totally not an ad. Though given recent events, it probably should be. I just want to be sure that I told you to read the book before I go into this, because there are going to be spoilers abound, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone who may want to go and read the book. Check it out, and if it's for you, read the book and skip this video till you're done. You'll get a lot more enjoyment from the book that way. If you have no interest in reading this, and just watch these videos to hear me talk about books, though I can't imagine why, then let's not waste any more time and get into A Criminal Defense. The cover is beautiful. It doesn't really make sense if you haven't read the book, but boy is it striking. It's a picture of a man in a suit, presumably our protagonist, Mick McFarland, but broken up and interspersed with images of a woman's arm lying on the ground, hopefully attached to the rest of the woman, and a staircase, which I promise will make sense later. Anyway, there's also the title, A Criminal Defense, and the author's name, William L. Myers Jr. underneath it, with a little tagline at the top that tells us that this is a legal thriller. That's good that it tells me, because I was worried that it might not be. And I just want to say that having seen the cover before I read the book, and then looking back on it after I read the book, you don't even notice half the stuff on the cover until you've read the book. It's such a great cover. Anyway, let's get to the story itself. The story centers around Mick McFarland, a defense lawyer and co-owner of a struggling law firm in Philadelphia. See, Mick is so dedicated to defending people who need defense, people who he believes are innocent and just had their trial botched by a bad lawyer, that he left a nice job at the DA's office to start his own law firm. Though the money isn't exactly rolling in, since he takes a lot of pro bono stuff, because of his dedication. Great for karma, not so much for his bank account. His current case is a college student being unjustly charged for actions that his friend partook in without him, but met up with him afterwards and they all got arrested together. They get a few good cases of white-collar people who are absolutely guilty, but he defends them anyway because, well, his wife Piper likes to spend money, so he can't be picky. His current project is helping a reporter, Jennifer Yamura, who recently uncovered a ring of corrupt cops and so is being put before a grand jury, and she needs expert legal advice to go up against the police. She wants to meet with him, and they set up a meeting, and then later on that day, she calls him again to move their meeting up slightly. Mick runs into Piper, who had been shopping, while he goes out for a walk and afterwards heads home. During the night, he is awoken by a phone call. an old friend from law school and now client, David Hansen. Hansen is being arrested for the murder of Jennifer Yamura, as he was seen running from her house after it had recently been cleaned, and the cops found Yamura dead at the bottom of the stairs in the basement. Hansen swears that he didn't do it. He was having an affair with her, but he didn't kill her. He found her at the bottom of the stairs dead and quickly tried to erase all evidence that he had ever been in the house so the affair wouldn't get out. Which, ironically, got him arrested for murder and ensured that the affair would get out. Whoops. Mick agrees to take the case, and it's an uphill battle, since all the evidence points to Hansen. Throw in the fact that he has a strained relationship with his brother Tommy, since he was away at law school when their father was sick, and wasn't there when he died, with the revelation being given to Mick that Tommy had helped their father with assisted suicide and ended his pain. His relationship with his wife isn't much better, being a little rocky because of her reckless spending, and the fact that he's distant because of work, and Mick has a lot on his plate. Not to mention how Mick also has a very bad relationship with the lead assistant DA, Devlin Walker, because of his time working in the DA's office. They were both vying for coveted spots and had their own teams, and when he bowed out to start his own law firm, a lot of the people in the DA's office were unhappy, and Walker never liked him to begin with. As evidence begins piling up, and Mick has to find a way to save Hansen from going to prison, all the while trying to figure out who actually committed the murder if it wasn't Hansen like he claims. The book has a fantastic ending. Whatever you think the ending is, you probably got it wrong. Now, normally I'd just skip over the resolution because I want to preserve it for you if you want to read it for yourself, which I highly, highly recommend. But I also want to talk about how brilliant an ending it is, so I have to summarize it or else I'm just talking about how great it is without you knowing how great it is. Anyway, here we go. Over the course of the novel, the plot thickens as more and more Hansen appears to be guilty, despite Mick not wanting to believe it. Mick tries to get his relationship with Tommy back on track at Piper's insistence, and visits his trailer, discovering that he's harboring a fugitive, one of the dirty cops, Lawrence Washington, though he's only having been dirty because his wife was sick and he needed the means to get her treatment. Now he's dying of a terminal illness and wants to spend his final days free. He also learns that Tommy was sleeping with Yamura and was the source of her story about the dirty cops. At one point, a woman gives Mick security footage that shows Hansen going to Yamura's house around the time of the murder and demands hush money, which Mick gets from Hansen. Though there's something else about the tape that we don't know yet, which I'll get to in a minute. Hansen is in desperate need of an alibi, and he has one. He has a hell of an alibi. He couldn't have killed Yamura because at the time of death, he was in a hotel room with Piper. Piper admits to having an affair with Hansen, and on the day that he ran into Piper when she had been shopping, they had been about to meet up. They had burner phones and everything. Anyway, Mick tells her that he knew about the affair. He's known since the day of the murder, the day that he pushed Jennifer Yamura down the stairs. Betcha didn't see that coming. When she moved the meeting up, she moved it up to him going over to her house that day. So that tape that he insisted on Hansen paying the woman off for, that was because he was also on the tape and needed to save his own ass. She met with him about blackmailing someone close to the case, but Mick refused to blackmail anyone. She got angry and heated and told him about the affair, and demanded that she do whatever she wants so she won't leak the news. He decided to leave because he didn't want any part in her scheme, and she started describing the type of sex that Hansen had with Piper, and he pushes her away. She goes down the stairs, and he grabbed her laptop and jewelry to make it look like a robbery gone wrong and got the hell out of there. That was why he was so tense when meeting with Piper during his walk home. He expects her to immediately reveal this to Walker, but she doesn't. She just reveals that Hansen had known what was going on from the start. It's why he hired Mick, because he knew Mick would hide the real truth and Piper would give his alibi. He meets with Walker the next day, revealing that Walker was on the tape too, and he grills Walker, accusing him of the murder. Walker obviously didn't do it, and also was having an affair with Yamura. My God, this woman! Listen, I'm not going to shame her for the fact that all these men were having affairs with her, but it's like she deliberately picked the most powerful people in the city just to have blackmail material if she ever needed it. Walker was also the one who convinced Ymura to hire Mick in the first place. Mick continues grilling him for information and tells Devlin that he'll keep the secret if Devlin helps get Hansen free and protects Tommy from retribution. In the end, Hansen is freed thanks to the testimony from Piper, and everything seems to work out fine. Mick strong-arms Hansen to give him a nice bonus to save the firm, and Mick ends the novel with Tommy telling him that he was also at Ymura's house that day, after the murder occurred, having seen Mick leave the scene, and went inside and comforted Jennifer as she died, another death that he has to carry with him. The novel ends with Mick and Tommy spending the weekend caring for Washington as he passes away, what they didn't get to do with their father, as Mick receives news from the young man from the beginning that he's going to get his appeal after all. The characters are all so realistic. I especially like Mick. The entire relationship with his brother is really well done, and so is his relationship with his wife. The stuff about his father dying and the revelation that, like Dr. McCoy in Star Trek V, Tommy had to carry that inside of him his entire adult life, is so powerful and one of the most touching scenes in the book. Considering the revelation that we get at the end about Piper, it makes sense that their relationship is distant, since he's so engrossed in his work and trying to make a life for their family, that he doesn't have time for Piper. It doesn't excuse Piper going off to Hansen, but it explains. I also like that he does care for his daughter Gabby, despite what his wife has done, wanting to keep their marriage going, if only for her sake. It helps a lot that we get the backstory of their financial troubles to explain how he works, she spends, and so he has to work even harder. And the fact that Mick is an unreliable narrator, but not just because he's not telling us everything, it's because you don't realize he's leaving stuff out. The entire time you think that Mick is as in the dark as everyone else is, until you get to that ending and it all falls into place. I spent 2 weeks reading this, and I never saw that ending coming. When I was reading the final few chapters of the book, I was just going to read one chapter, put it down, finish it later, but once I started with that ending, I had to keep going, and my jaw was open the entire time. I had never once entertained any notion that Mick had anything to do with it. He was the lawyer. The lawyers are never in on the crime, and Myers keeps that a really good secret. There's also a lot of good stuff with Hansen and his wife, who knows about the affair and immediately begins playing with covering it up, leaking stuff to the news and everything, a good mirror for what would later happen with Mick and Piper. Despite the affair of one partner, they protect each other. It'd be romantic if it wasn't so seedy. Hansen is a jackass, but he's not a murderer, and the book is really good at showing us that. He's an immoral, white-collar jerk. But he wouldn't murder someone, especially not in the brutal way that Mick did. And the stuff with Walker, with all the other minor characters, it's all so well written. Even the family of Jennifer Ymura, who I think only interact with Mick once or twice, are super well developed in the short time they're in the story. The same with the woman with the security footage and the legal advisor that Mick hires. They're not around for that long, but they're extremely developed. The book has so many layers, and the characters have so many layers within those layers, it's almost like reading a true crime book, because if Myers came out tomorrow and said that this was based on a true story, I'd believe it because of how realistically its characters are written. And before anyone says, it sort of is, because a lot of Myers' biography is similar to Mick's backstory, so he obviously pulled from his own experiences to write it. But obviously he didn't do anything like Mick did in regards to the murder and cover-up, which is the most impressive part of the story. At least I really hope he didn't. The book has brilliant pacing, like it's slow at some points, fast-paced at others, and it wraps up really quickly. But considering that the major revelations are given in the last 15% of the book, it's not a crazy amount of rushing. It's just that once those revelations have been given, the case wraps itself up quickly because everything is over. But I don't feel as if it had to be longer, because the build-up was so good that it was a very fitting ending. I think the book was exactly as long as the story required it to be told. There's a lot of stuff left unresolved, but it was left unresolved for a reason, and not as a sequel bait or something. I think it's more interesting that way. I don't have to know the aftermath because the ending was satisfying. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time I was reading it, and I was still on the edge of my seat days after I read it, thinking about how great the book was. The book does admittedly have a lot of legal jargon, but not so much that it's hard to follow. Even though I understand the way court cases work more so than someone who has no idea what any of the words mean, Myers does a good job of making it so that the meaning is explained through the actions of the characters, so even if you don't know what something means, you can get the meaning from the context clues. Some books expect you to know the words already, but not this one. I also really like how the story unfolds, too. It's a lot like how Star Trek Discovery seems to be unfolding. Sure, we go from start to finish, but we take a lot of trips back to hear Hanson's side of the story, Mick's side, Piper's side, but it always pushes the story forwards. I don't think that there are any scenes in this book that are just fluff. Everything is important. Everything that happens has relevance, especially with the ending. You can't ignore anything in this book. Nothing is left to chance, and everything that happens or is said is deliberate. It is rare, really, to find a story that can tell you absolutely nothing leading into the ending, and you think that you know how it's going to end because it's a legal thriller and they always end with the lawyer getting justice for his client, and then everything eventually falls into place in a completely different way. I mean, I don't think I have anything else to say about it other than it's absolutely fantastic. The book is utterly, utterly brilliant. I can't recommend this novel enough. If you like legal thrillers, you have never read anything like this before, and so it's a must-read. If there was any level higher than must-read, I'd give it to this book. But I don't think there's a higher recommendation than me literally begging you to give it a read. It's surprising that this is William L. Myers' first published novel, according to Amazon anyway, because this really reads like the type of story that only an experienced veteran of the writing world could accomplish. Stephen King? I'd expect something like this from. He's been in the business for decades and knows how everything works. But a first-time author? Even if he did pull from his own experiences to write it, this is a stellar first entry in what I hope is a very long and very prolific career. And that was A Criminal Defense. Was it good? It was phenomenal. It is an experience, and one that you can't truly appreciate until you've read the book. So if this sounded interesting to you, check it out. Myers has another standalone coming out later this month, which I am definitely going to check out, only based on the merits of this book. I have no idea what it's about, but it's bound to be good. I don't even know if I can ever read another legal thriller after this, because in my opinion, this is the best one out there, so anything else will never be able to hold a candle to this book. This book blew me away. I really have nothing left to say about it other than, wow. Took me an entire video just to say wow. Wow. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of the Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button, and if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. Oh, and if you want to be notified of new uploads, you can hit that bell icon. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. Next week is How to Fix It's 50th episode. But the week after, we're doing another viewer request poll. This one is for a book, and for the first one, I'm theming it around a genre. And the genre is young adult fantasy. And the choices are, predictably, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, The Lightning Thief, and Twilight. Happy voting. Also, if I can be frank, Twilight's just there for the sake of having it there. You're going to get a funnier review out of the other two books. Trust me. But it's up to you guys now. See you next time. And that was a criminal defense. Was it good? It was phenomenal. It is an experience, and one that you can't truly experience.
Okay, that guy, you did it before in the beginning, but then just now you went, you look like an animatronic that broke. It scared me.
Well, because I could see the light on the ceiling, so I was like...
But all I was thinking, okay, no, do not compute. Do not compute.
I do that all the time.
But it's so
You've never really watched me do it.
I'm so glad you just, like, messed up again and you had to stop, because otherwise I would have...